Good afternoon and welcome to the Rude Dog Show. I am your gracious host, Rudy Reyes, and welcome to another great hour. So don't be left out in the cold. Come in, sit down for a spell, and tune in by downloading the WBLZ Sports app from either iTunes or the Google Play Store, or you could even roll the dice and go to the RudeDogShow.com and download the app you need. Thank you for joining me. Good afternoon, everybody. Look, this is a preemptive strike into a possible sweep, so get out your brooms. You might be ready for this. And as we welcome two very informative, not to mention user-friendly NBA sports personalities, welcome Mr. Ray Woodson from Host. He's a host of Sports Phone 680 in San Francisco, California, and Mr. Chris Axmann, head of ABPN Radio at almightyballer.com. Gentlemen, welcome to the show.
Thanks a lot. Yeah, happy to be here.
Thanks a lot, guys. I appreciate you taking your time. I know you're in a crunch for time, Ray. I know you're preparing for the possible a sweep session going on as this game is now sent to Cleveland, and the Golden State Warriors are pretty decent on the road, and we'll get into that. So when you look at the sports season and what's going on inside of it, basically has really gone, well, it hasn't gone anywhere, because when you look at the NBA and the stars who have thus far performed or some that have not performed, it couldn't be anything less than opposite ends of the spectrum. This tide turns to Cleveland. The Cavaliers find themselves in an 0-2 deficit. When you look closer at this, one needs to stop and think, who are the human highlight reels thus far in this matchup through two games? Ray, I have to ask you, I probably already had the answer, but when you look at this Golden State Warriors team, I had mentioned earlier in the year, me and you had spoken earlier as well. We had talked about how Kevin Durant was a missing piece of this puzzle. Is he the missing piece of this puzzle, and will he be the key tomorrow night in Cleveland as they take on the Cavaliers at home?
Well, I mean, you look at the difference between this year and last, and people are saying, hey, they were up 2-0 last year, and they ended up blowing the 3-1 lead. Well, it's a totally different circumstance this year, and it starts with KD. It starts with Kevin Durant, and, he was dominant in the first two games. Really feels like this is his moment. If it keeps going this way, I think he's going to be the MVP of the final series. What he does with the offensive and the defensive end, and we've seen several sequences like that. I mean, he's been all over the place defensively. He's been an incredible help defender, and it also helps that he has another great help defender on the court in Draymond Green on top of that. The other difference this year is Steph Curry is healthy, and he's demonstrated that in the first couple of games. So they can't turn the ball over like they did in Game 2 for Game 3. If they cut that down, they're going to be in pretty good shape.
I see that as well, but you also have to look at how they've been playing together. We had talked during the regular season about how Durant needs to meld in, and despite his injury, Kevin Durant, the Warriors went on a tear, winning 15 games heading into the postseason, as Steph Curry was clearly a part of that. Having him not on the floor wasn't as much of a necessity then, but I believe is more so now. And when you stick him with the starting group, it seems as though there's not only melding going on, but Kevin Durant looks possessed at times. Ray, when you look at Kevin Durant, when you look at what he brings defensively, because he's so long, he's athletic, he's tall, he's just a smart player, do you see them taking this sweep? I mean, do they do it in 5, or do you believe the Golden State Warriors will falter in Cleveland by losing 2 to the Cavs?
I don't think they're going to lose 2 to the Cavs. I think they're at least going to get a split. I think Game 3 is going to be the one where all the energy Cleveland possesses is going to come to the front. I mean, they're going to throw everything but the kitchen sink at the Warriors. I think Dante Jones may actually throw a kitchen sink at Steph Curry. I'm not sure. I mean,
or Richard Jefferson. I mean, that's one of the things I noticed from last game is that he was getting a little dangerous.
Yeah, I think there's a little concern about that on the Warriors side. What the Cavaliers are going to be willing to do. They're in a desperate situation. If they don't get this done in Game 3, it's over. So I think you'll see them get physical and maybe cross a line, see what they can get away with. And so I think the Warriors are on notice about that. They're probably going to try to test Draymond Green's temper. On top of that, see if they can goad him into something. You know, so that psychological warfare is going to be going on as well. But I would think that the Cavaliers are going to win a game. It's going to be tonight. Game 3, and you know it's going to be using that home court advantage. It's going to be J.R. Smith making a contribution. He plays much better at home than he does on the road. And I heard Tyronn Lue say today that he doesn't plan to change the starting lineup. J.R. Smith is going to continue to start. It's just the problem for the Cavaliers defensively is it's a game of whack-a-mole when you have to run it on the floor. There are so many options for the Warriors, especially when Klay Thompson gets going like he did in Game 2. They're going to keep scoring on the Cavaliers. I think the only thing that's really going to stop the Warriors is the Warriors.
I definitely agree with you. And when you look at the flip of the switch between the Cavaliers, look, Kevin Love looked absolutely abysmal, going 12 for 23 from the field, 2 for 7 from 3, not to mention LeBron James, the king himself, being shorthanded and handcuffed, going 12 for 18 in almost 40 minutes of play. I mean, there has to be something wrong with this system and the way that they're playing. It almost looked as if LeBron James was playing his own game and there was nobody else. He was playing the point guard, the forward. You know, he was doing all these a variety of things and didn't get help from the most suspicious of all guys, Kyrie Irving, almost transparent in Game 2, shooting 8 for 23. Would you say this is an unnerving or un-Irving, to see what I did there, type performance?
I saw it, yeah.
Wow.
You're on fire.
I wish Kyrie Irving was on fire. It'd be a lot more interesting.
Yes.
I mean, he started off so well in Game 2. He went, again, 8 for 23, and I just think that there's a problem when you look at Kyrie Irving. It's just not something that he's accustomed to, making some good plays when he had the ability. Chris, looking at Kyrie Irving, is he going to straighten out? Is he going to look even remotely better at home?
Yeah, you got to think he's going to be. I think that all of the Cleveland players are going to look a lot better. And if you ask me if the Cavaliers are going to win a game or, I mean, hey, win the series, then it's got to be at home when the role players are playing better. And, I mean, one thing I think we've noticed, I heard Ben Golliver the other day talk about Kevin Durant on his show as a role player. But really, I think the guys who we know are role players now are essentially the entire Cleveland Cavaliers team, because this team has just been all LeBron, and LeBron can only carry them so far, and especially if Kevin Durant is out playing him, which it seems like it's been this series. So Kyrie's either going to step it up or, you know, get out the broom.
I'd like to think that LeBron James wouldn't have to do everything himself. It almost led me to question, and of course the answer was right there when LeBron James himself said, I'm going to decline post-game interviews, which is not something that he's accustomed to doing. And I could have honestly said, he's going to pull a Money Lynch out of the NFL, sitting in there saying, I'm just here so I don't get fined. But something has to remind you of why he went on a banter, which is obviously logical because his house was vandalized by racial slurs and things of that nature very, very recently. What is that getting into LeBron James, Ray? When you look at LeBron James, you look at what he brings through the regular season. He did have a burp, and I call that a burp, a proverbial burp, in this Boston Celtics series prior to the finals, where he just went flat. It was almost not even there. Is that something that could get underneath his skin that would play a role in Game 3, or you see him coming out on fire?
I think you'll see him coming out the way he did in Game 2. And he's going to try to get to the hoop. He's going to try to play downhill. I mean, he didn't attempt a shot outside the lane, I don't think, for the first half of the game, maybe the first 3 quarters. Then he finally, I think, made it 3. I think that they feel like probably that's their shot. It reminds me a little bit of a couple of years ago when LeBron put the series on his shoulder and was absolutely brilliant, by the way. And he's played great the first couple of games. It's just not enough. And yeah, he needs something more from Kyrie Irving. I would think that one of these 2 games, Kyrie's going to break out, and that's why I give the Cavaliers a much better chance to win a game here in Cleveland. He's got to get some more help. Kevin Love put up some numbers. I mean, he had 21 rebounds in the first game, and then he had, pretty good numbers scoring-wise in game 2, but it did not seem impactful. It's not like you really noticed him as much. Kyrie's a guy who will leave an imprint if he gets going. I don't know if his knees are 100%. Not using that as an excuse, but I think he's talked about that. It's bothered him at times, so you have to wonder if it's not as bad as Steph Curry was last year, but if it's bothering him a little bit. But I think he's got another good game in him, and so it's going to take that along with LeBron to get it done for Cleveland, and the role players too, making a contribution at home. And I mentioned J.R. Smith specifically because he can be a change player, and he's shown that last year. Couple of years ago at home, he can get hot, and if he gets going, then the Cavaliers definitely have a puncher's chance.
Definitely so, and I believe the Cavaliers ship could be capsizing along with your role players. I mean, your starters, Irving went 8 for 23, J.R. Smith is 0 for 2 from the field, 0 for 2 on three-point range, only 1 rebound. Look, this team has to play much better. I suspect they will. I believe they will get a win at home, but what's even more interesting is that these guys as a whole, and I'm talking about bench included with Deron Williams, Channing Frye, and of course, Chris, you had mentioned the aforementioned throwdown of Steph Curry, which obviously was missed and not called. Shooting 45% from the field were the Cavaliers. So you have to suspect that because they're at home with a much better record at home, that they could get game 3, but I just don't foresee Cleveland being able to really answer. And I think the answer is Kevin Durant. Me and Ray talked about this earlier in the season. I think me and you touched on that as well, Chris, that Kevin Durant is certainly one of those pieces to the puzzle that will need to stay consistent, will also need to play his game the way that he has done it for years. And he's very hungry right now, playing with an opportunity to win his very first ring. Is there something more you're going to see from Kevin Durant in Cleveland?
Yeah, I'm not sure there's much more to see from Kevin Durant, honestly. Like I remember last year, the big move, basically, that I think pretty much won the series for the Cavaliers was, okay, we're going to put LeBron at center, the position that you can most impact the team's defense. And then also, at the other side, we're going to have him dribble up the ball. He's going to be the point guard. So we're going to have our best player dominating the defense on one end and dominating the offense on the other end. And there's been a player doing that in this series, and his name hasn't been LeBron.
Ooh, that's almost like a bird, when you look at the Cavaliers. Almost a burn. Ray, I know you have to go.
Really, Ray, though, those minutes with LeBron, with Kevin Durant at center, like those were incredibly impactful with Draymond being out, right?
It's a matchup nightmare at both ends of the floor, without a doubt. He can be a rim protector, and then he can take his block and he can bring it down and he can score, like he did in that sequence that we'll see over and over again against Kevin Love, where he blocked Love and then he scored on him on the fallback bank shot. And that is such a huge difference. I mean, last year in the final 3 games, they left Harrison Barnes alone, and he went 5 for 32. So they don't have that luxury this year. That's why they got this guy. It's a third option, or actually the first of 3 top scoring options, and then you can stagger the lineups. You can mix and match with him. It gives you so much flexibility. Your so-called small lineup includes a 7-footer who can block shots, who can run the floor, can hit threes. So good luck trying to defend that. When he's on, nobody stops him. They can do double and triple team, and they can try that. Good luck with that. Leaving Steph or Clay or even Draymond Green open, it's like I said, it's whack-a-mole. Kevin Durant just changes the whole dynamic.
He does. I enjoy his play. I enjoy his hunger. I really love watching him. He's so fluid, not only in the open court, but he can drive. The guy can drive with the best of him. He almost reminds me at times of a Michael Jordan-esque kind of drive. Well, he'll kind of walk up into the paint and then leap. And instead of going to the hoop, he'll just kind of lay it in, which is obviously not defendable because at that point it'd be goaltending. But Kevin Durant brings so much to this team, and anybody can say what they want. They can say that Kevin Durant is he didn't want to stay with the Thunder because they weren't a championship caliber team. No, they weren't. He left because they were not. Now he doesn't even want to hear it, and all it is white noise. That's really what it boils down to. He's playing like he should. He's doing what he needs to. He's playing along with guys like Andre Iguodala. He's playing with Draymond Green defensively. You leave Draymond in the open. I mean, there's so many, JaVale McGee, there's so many guys that you can turn to where if you're Kerr or Mike Brown, you can say, you know what, you can sit them out and we're still going to be effective. We're still going to take them to the hole. And I believe that, and I've said it before, that you're going to see a huge difference on home floor by the Cleveland Cavaliers with more scoring opportunities. The crowd will be in it. Everything will be flowing and rolling. They will get the next game. However, in the grander scheme of things, I still believe Golden State, with the depth and the way that they're playing and execution on both sides of the floor, will prevent the Cavaliers from getting into rhythm throughout the rest of the series. Ray, I know you have to go. Tell everybody where they can find you and where they can see all your good stuff on Twitter and on, the internet.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's at Ray Woodson 680 on Twitter. We're on the air at KNBR 680, 50,000 watts out of San Francisco weeknights. We're doing Giants post games, but we'll definitely have a full show Thursday, and we'll have a chance to talk about Game 3, whatever happens. The psychology of Game 3 is going to be fascinating, though. I would fully expect, and I think the Warriors fully expect the Cavaliers to come out on fire. But if they don't build up a big enough margin, the Warriors are going to sit back and they're not going to panic, and they're going to say, okay, we're going to creep back into this. And the Cavaliers have it in the back of their mind. They blow that lead, and they end up losing the game. They're down 3-0. I think the pressure is all on Cleveland in this game.
I do as well, Ray. Thank you so much. I appreciate your time. And if they end up winning Game 3, and I mean the Cavaliers, maybe we can have you back on the Rude Dog Show. We'll talk about Game 4.
All right, it's a deal.
Appreciate it. Thanks a lot, Ray.
All right, thank you.
Take care. Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, that was Ray Woodson. How insightful. I always enjoy having him on the show. Great guy. Thank you, Ray, for joining the show. I have to take a quick commercial break. You have to pay the man, but I'll be right back with the other 30 minutes of a master plan right here on the Rude Dog Show, as well as Chris Axmann. And I know you're hanging on, Lou, so we'll be right back with your questions. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show on WBLZSports.com. We're talking NBA Finals, ladies and gentlemen, so make sure you stay tuned. We will be right back. Welcome back to the Rude Dog Show. This is Rudy Reyes. I am Facebook Live, but I am recording this. I'll be podcasting this as soon as I am done. My apologies for that. Circumstances beyond my control, but welcome back to the Rude Dog Show. We have 30 minutes exactly to finish the remainder of the other half of this show. So welcome back to the show, Chris Axmann. He is the head of ABPN Radio, almightyballin.com. Welcome back, Chris. I appreciate you joining me for the other part of the segment.
Yeah, anytime.
Thanks, man. I appreciate it. And I know, Lou, you've been waiting to ask some questions. Did you have a question for Chris?
Well, I didn't think about it, but I was thinking more about your last caller. That Kevin Love does bring more of a forward game for Cleveland. So I have to agree with him on that.
Okay.
I don't think they can win it without him.
In all fairness, Kevin Love just not showing up the way that you would want him to. I know he's a dynamic player, but he hasn't been healthy. His knees are not exactly 100%. As Ray had pointed out, he's complained about him. He's made notice of him. He's let people know, look, I'm not 100%. And I believe that that's when you take your double team advantage and attack him with it, because at that point, without the mobility to get away from the double team, he's going to end up confident up. And that's exactly what he did with Kevin Durant. Biggest question, Chris, in relation to, will LeBron James show his greatness? Is there he didn't get any help from his starters, first and foremost. We're just going to call it like it is. He didn't get any help. He was looking for somebody else to step up, and it really was not there. Do you believe he's going to get more than he can bargain for and then turn into more of an assist guy in Game 3, or do you look for him to go on the attack and really punch the exclamation point to win this game?
I think he's going to do both. I think that he has to do both. I think that LeBron going on the attack, like he said, is him taking over the game, and whether that means passing or scoring, I think every offensive possession you're going to see him with the ball in his hands. And I think that everyone on the Cavaliers, everyone on the Warriors, and everyone watching, we all know that the most efficient, the most effective thing that the Cavaliers can do is try to get LeBron to the basket, because he either scores at the basket with the best of them, or he kicks it out to Kyle Korver. He kicks it out to Kyrie Irving. He kicks it out to Kevin Love with the best of them. And I think that that's what we're going to see every possession.
I do as well. I look at Kevin Love. He'll be more of the passer by assist guy. Why? Because he isn't 100%. So I look for the Cavaliers to really post him up as well. And to your point, there's a lot of things that LeBron James, clearly he's not, a two-time champion because he likes to sit from the bench and watch everybody else play, but he gets involved in the process. And I look for him to help get others involved as well. I didn't see so much of that because, again, as a professional, as a, two-time champion that LeBron James is, you would suspect that everybody around him would want to play at his level. It wasn't there in Game 3. I looked for that to be the case in Game 2, but I look for that to be the case in Game 3. I like what the Golden State Warriors are doing. They're boxing out. They're letting guys, take these random, shots, not being effective inside of the paint, disabling them from just driving the lane, and a lot of turnovers for them. But the Warriors also had plenty of turnovers in their own right. What do the Warriors have to do to minimize those turnovers to where they don't really cost them against the Cavaliers in Game 3?
Yeah, I definitely do agree on the principle of that question, which is, do the Warriors need to cut down on turnovers? I think that, the first couple of games, certainly by the end of the third, fourth quarters, it was sort of a cakewalk to the finish line. And that's because they were up by like 20 points by then. And I think that this game, they're going to find that things are a little bit harder. And yeah, are they going to be able to limit turnovers? Maybe, maybe not. I think probably the answer is it's almost like there's nothing that they can really do about it. They need to play their offense, and that means freewheeling, free dealing. They just really need to hit their shots. And I think that that's what happened last year. You can say, well, they got a little sloppy with the ball. That's something the Warriors do. But you can't play at that high frenetic pace, whipping the ball around, hitting those crazy threes that they do without getting a little bit suspect with your passing, without like really pushing the envelope. So I don't think it's so much about limiting turnovers. I just think it's once the ball's in the air, does it go through the hoop?
Yeah.
Biggest question, whether or not they can be effective in the ball passing. And you're right, Golden State Warriors certainly need to do a lot better, not only in the ball passing aspect, but not put those passes into a double team situation where you have, 4 arms and hands to basically block, to turn the ball over. I think that needs to be a lot more accurately done in the transition offense in order to prevent those costly turnovers. And that's something that the Golden State Warriors really need to take a look at and be more fundamentally sound when it comes to that aspect of their game. Other than that, there really isn't a whole lot of weakness to this Golden State Warriors team. And of course, we had mentioned previous in the show that with the addition of Kevin Durant, certainly it's changed the dynamics, not only defensively, but from a morale standpoint. When you have a guy who's on the court, who gives so much, who does so much, who adds everything to the dimension of the overall play for your team, certainly you want to look for a guy just like that to add to the overall energy, not only of the guys who are your starters, but the guys that are on the bench. Make sure you go to SeatGiant.com, get your experience. Hashtag get your experience. Not only tickets, make sure you buy the experience, because without it, you're just buying a piece of paper that isn't worth the 50 cents you spent on it. Go to SeatGiant.com and get your tickets now. Use the code RUDOG, you get a little something off of your transaction. So definitely worth it to go to SeatGiant.com. Chris, I look at Game 3. This is home court. I like the chances of the Cavaliers actually winning this game, and I believe they can, but he's going to have to expect better from his starters, as well as individually needing to expect a lot from themselves in order to contribute not only to this game, not only to this team, but to this series overall. Biggest question of the day is this. Do the Golden State Warriors take it in 5, or does this go all the way to 7 if the Cavaliers happen to win the next 2 games?
I picked the Cavaliers at the start of the series. And of course, now being down 0-2, it looks like, that's probably not the most likely outcome. I think that what's going to happen is that, either they'll win this game 3, the Warriors, or the Cavaliers are going to fight back. And the reason I'm thinking for that is if they win this game, the Warriors, and they're up 3-0 on the Cavaliers, then I just don't think that the Cavaliers are going to show up the game after. It's sort of like it's not their style. I think they're just sort of, let it play out. They'll show up. They'll, do what they need to do, but they'll understand at that point that, okay, we're not going to win this series, and I just don't think that they can take that same level of fire that you would need to win the series. So I think that, I'm not really sure who's going to win tonight. I think probably I'm picking the Cavaliers because of what I just said. I think really their season is on the line. But, I think pretty much we'll figure out who's going to win tonight, or we'll figure out who's going to win in Game 4 by who wins tonight.
Right. The winner tonight is going to do one of 2 things, whether it be the Warriors or albeit the Cavaliers on home court. You really look for the Cavaliers to try to make a series of this, and of course it always makes for good ratings if you're into that kind of thing. Cavaliers will have to win at least one of these 2, and not only to keep from being swept. No, I think they will as well. They have the ability to do it at home. They have one of the best home records for the regular season, and I assume naturally that Tyronn Lue, and it's kind of interesting. I know everybody's seen this video where Allen Iverson basically walked over Tyronn Lue after just basically ball faking him, and walked over it and tried to sort of say, that's what happens when you try to guard me kind of thing. But I believe that was one of the reasons why Tyronn Lue has been so effective for this Cavaliers franchise. Obviously, I had spoken yesterday on another show, talk about how David Blatt was the heir apparent to one of the few remaining coaches in the NBA who had actually done something David Blatt also released in lieu, no pun intended, of Tyronn Lue. You can see what I did there as well. But look, I like the chances the Cavaliers will actually really make a hard-pressed run at this, not only offensively but defensively, where they really prevent the Warriors from playing their game. Is this more about the Cavaliers and their ability to win on home court, or is this more about the Warriors and what they do offensively to prevent the Cavaliers from getting into rhythm to win Game 3?
Yeah, I was for the Cavaliers winning on home court. Sorry.
Oh, no, please go ahead.
I think it's about the Cavaliers winning on home court, and they're not much better at home than they are on the road. I mean, this is their moment right now. If they can't win here, if they can't win in Game 3, forget. The time for them is now. And by the way, the game was tomorrow night, not tonight.
Right. Tomorrow night.
Yeah. I am thinking that it is about the Cavaliers stepping up and seizing the moment, and it'll be interesting to see what that means because there's a well-known, threshed-out thing, which is superstars will show up whether you're away or whether you're home, but role players really show up at home, and that better be true because they definitely didn't show up. The Cavaliers role players didn't show up in Golden State, and you got to hope that vice versa. I mean, yeah, Kevin Durant hit some crazy shots, and Steph Curry is always going to hit crazy shots, but you saw Zaza, taking mid-range pull-up type things. You saw Ian Clark really firing on all cylinders. When the Warriors role players go out there like that, it's just there's so many things that if the Warriors do, there's no way of beating them, and that's one of them. If the Warriors role players play well, then it's just good night. And you got to think that the same is the true for the Cavaliers because they're a super talented team as well.
Yeah, they very much so are. Look, they wouldn't be here unless they weren't talented. They wouldn't be here unless they, just kind of slept on the whole unity thing. They clearly had bought into what Tyronn Lue was selling, as well as Tyronn Lue, and I was talking about this as well on another broadcast about how because of David Blatt's departure, Tyronn Lue enters, and here is LeBron James calling all the shots. He's the one asking for Kyle Korver. He's the one asking for, all these, the variety of guys, Deron Williams citing as well. He didn't do too much either, but is there something to be said for players calling the shots, wanting to acquire other guys who they've been in contact? Hey, LeBron, I'm looking for a spot, man. You got anything open? That's basically what it boils down to. And all of a sudden, LeBron James talks to the front office. He talks to management. He talks to coaching. He says, look, I like this guy right here. Can you get him? And it's almost like that. Is there something to be said for any NBA franchise to really go after what players are looking for to acquire in order to make it so? Or is this maybe a shot in the dark where the organization itself said, yeah, you know what? We'll go ahead and try it and see what happens. What are your thoughts on that, Chris?
Yeah, I'm not really sure. I think that the Cavaliers have to win with this team, and there's only so much that you can do as far as acquiring players and getting guys out there on the court. At the end of the day, it's sort of about honestly, to put this in a different way, if LeBron can't carry a team to the championship, it doesn't matter what you put around him, honestly, because if LeBron can't do it, then so maybe you have Paul George on the team, maybe you don't. But, it just means that this Warriors team is unbeatable, basically, right?
Yeah, you would suspect that, but the bottom line is that everybody needs to contribute. You got to stop a guy like Kevin Durant. I know the Cavaliers have rotated. I know they put LeBron on him at one point. And they put, obviously, Kevin Love, which is still not very favorable because of the knee situation for Kevin Love. Kevin Durant just making a monkey out of the Cavaliers or anybody who tries to stop him from playing his game. Steph Curry, obviously, he had a triple-double, 10 rebounds, 7 assists, 7 for 17, 4 for 11 from 3, and perfect for the line at 14 all. Look, I'm not jumping on a bandwagon here. Anybody that knows me knows that I don't bandwagon anything, but the Warriors are extremely deep. They have been all season long. Has not had any major injuries, but neither have the Cavaliers. I like the way the Warriors are playing right now. I had taken them in 5 originally. I'm going to stick with that because I believe they just have much more fortitude. They have the attitude. They have the personality. They're playing like they want to win. And with Kevin Durant as a part of that equation, I don't find them beatable in this series. I really don't. And it's not because they're up 2-0. It's because of the fluid of play. Chris, fluidity has everything to do with the way teams play. The reason why teams are where they're at right now, Cavaliers and Warriors, right now, who's playing with better fluidity? And do you foresee the Cavaliers maybe grabbing some of that energy and inertia and using it to their advantage tomorrow night in Game 3?
Yeah, of course the Warriors are the ones who are playing with better fluidity. And I think that, there's been a lot of talk around Tyronn Lue's comment about, well, even though in 2015, the way that we won this series is by junking things up, getting it slow, sort of, really going toe-to-toe on every single possession, basically like gunking up the game, dirtying up the game. And Tyronn Lue feels like now, with the team that they have, with the situation they're in, it's about pushing the pace. Now, I don't know the answer to it, and it seems like everyone on Twitter, all these, hot take artists, they feel like, well, that's stupid. Like, Tyronn Lue, obviously you have to stop pushing the pace. But this was the team where the thing that the Cavaliers had going into the series over the Warriors isn't defense, isn't fluidity, isn't, really much of anything, but scoring. They got more points in the basket. So however you do that, and again, I think that it's, put the ball in LeBron's hands, get into the basket, and kick it out. I think that's the best way to score. And I think that that's maybe, honestly, a little bit clunky and not fluid. It's not going to have that ball movement. It's not going to have multiple passes in any given possession. It's just going to be, boom, LeBron to the basket, freight train, and then, boom, now it's in Kyrie's hands and he shoots a 3. That's not beautiful, but I think that it's probably the way to win, whether you do it fast or slow.
I like the fact that LeBron James knows how to take games over, but would you have to play so many different roles that he did in game 2, it almost looks as if he's going to tire himself out very, very fast. I mean, I looked at him sitting down on the bench, and he was gassed, man. He was gassed. He had nothing left in the tank. He came back in for the final, 4 or 5 minutes, I think it was, for the game, and basically played and put himself in such a position where he was just upset. He was upset at the fact that his team did not come through. They didn't play like he thought they may have, because you're one person. You can't be expected to do everything by yourself. And I think that's one of the reasons why he declined that post-game interview, because if I was him, I put myself in his situation, I probably would have done the very same thing. You could find me or not. I don't care. I'm not going to sit here and basically at points he's not really answered questions. He's, kind of taken almost like a Russell Westbrook approach, where he would be asked questions and he would decline to give them full detailed answers and failing to not just take it upon himself, but as a team. So it's not about him, it's about the team. I think that's one of the reasons that makes Russell Westbrook the obvious MVP in my mindset. So on that note, Chris, when you look at the MVP vote, I'm not talking finals MVP, but we'll talk about that in a second. We look at the regular season MVP, James Harden lighting it up with massive triple-doubles, Russell Westbrook leading in triple-doubles, passes Oscar Robertson for that nomination. But when you look at the MVP, who is your regular season MVP? Who is a guy who put it out on the line during the regular season that just makes you sit there and scratch your head and say, well, he should be the obvious pick?
Well, I don't think there's anyone who's the obvious MVP. We have a lot of great players in the league, and I think there were a lot of great individual seasons. I think that, if you're interpreting it as just true straight value, I would probably give it to Kawhi. But that's not really how it's been calculated. If you're saying, okay, who's the best player in the league, then you give it to LeBron. It seems like the MVP, there's no description for it. There's no guidelines for voting. It's just who is the most valuable player, and then you have to decide what that means. And based on the history of the award and based on the way that I think that people interpret it, I personally went with Russell Westbrook. And part of the reason for that is I figure, there is a finals MVP, right? Getting back to the finals. And there is a regular season MVP. And the way that you win regular season MVP is you perform better than everyone else during the regular season. And Russell Westbrook, this was really the year of Russell Westbrook. But there's a reason why he's not going to win finals MVP. It's because he's not in the finals. So when you start to break down, well, his team didn't do well, his, teammates didn't perform, he didn't pass as much as he needed to, he didn't run pick and roll with Steven Adams. It's like, yeah, that's true, and that's why they won't make it to the finals. But that doesn't really calculate into whether or not you win MVP. I mean, Dirk Nowitzki learned that in 2007 when the Mavericks got knocked out in the first round, but he still won MVP because it's not about postseason success. It's just about regular season performance. And that guy, I mean, he averaged a triple-double. That guy has to be Russell Westbrook.
I like the Russell Westbrook pick. It's not the sexy pick. The sexy pick, I think, goes to would go to James Harden. Why? Because his attitude, his demeanor while he's on the court, his coolness under pressure. Obviously, at times you've seen little crinks in the armor. But you were mentioning postseason MVP and where the finals are at right now. I'd have to suggest that if for some reason LeBron James just blows the scales and really just puts everything on his back and on fire, plays 45 minutes with, he's 23 for 13 from the line or some nonsense numbers, he could be the finals MVP. But right now, it's not. It is not him as finals MVP. If there was somebody who was in the running for that, I would probably suggest maybe Kevin Durant. Why? Because he has done so many things. It's not like we're talking about hockey where you have to appear in one game in the finals to have your name on the Stanley Cup. This is the NBA. This is a year in from one start to the end of how you performed in the finals. So we're not talking regular season. In the finals, I think Kevin Durant, despite his 15 games, again, we're talking regular season, he's done it here in the finals. Who would be your finals MVP, Chris?
I think right now, Kevin Durant is pretty much the obvious choice. I mentioned earlier with Ray, he's been the best player on offense, and he's been the best player on defense most possessions. So, yeah, right now it's Kevin Durant, but I think probably what's going to end up dictating it is, if the Cavaliers win, it'll, of course, be LeBron. But if the Warriors win and they get pushed a little bit, and whether that means, there's a close game, or whether that means it goes to 6 or 7, I think whoever is the guy who puts them over the top in close games, those are going to be the performances that everyone remembers. So, Steph Curry could not score next game, right? Game 3, Steph Curry could not even score once, and it'd be fine. But if in Game 7, Steph Curry drops 50, he's the finals MVP.
Yeah, I think you're right. Why? Because it's what have you done in the moment? What have you done for me lately? And Steph Curry would be my runner-up for finals and MVP if for some reason they do end up winning it all. But what's interesting is this. Let's just say for some reason the Cavaliers decide to come on fire and win all of it. If they were to win, would LeBron James automatically become the finals MVP, even though the numbers don't reflect that?
Well, if the Cavaliers win this series, it'll be because LeBron goes supernova, right? Who's going to win it? Like, Iman Shumpert? If he, I'll tell you what, if Iman Shumpert does score 50 points in one of these games, then he's finals MVP. I'll grant him that. I don't think that. Right. Yeah, right. I just don't see it happening. And I feel like there's there's even a slight chance that Kyrie Irving goes hot, scores 40, 40, 40. You know, he just starts hitting all of his shots. But it's still got to be LeBron who puts him in that position. So, I mean, I just don't see anyone on the Cavaliers, if they were to win, who could win the Finals MVP except for LeBron.
I have to agree with you. I mean, the only way that this would be a non-LeBron situation is if he got injured. Heaven forbid that would happen. But if he did, you're going to have to find somebody like Kyrie Irving needing to step in. I mean, why can't we look at the collective effort of all of these guys? Why not have everybody in, 10 to 15 points? So 10 to 15 per person in your starters. You make your rotation. Everybody else is a contributor. Then you would have to find another Finals MVP because it wouldn't be them. It'd be the best performer during the finals. That's the criteria for the NBA Finals MVP. Chris, tell everybody where they can find your fantastic stuff on almightyballin.com and obviously the new radio station. Tell everybody a little bit more about that.
Yeah, you can find me at almightyballer.com. You can follow me at almightyballin on Twitter. My show is Almighty Ballin NBA Show. I recently started doing a panel with Adam Mares, Coach Dave DeFour, James Hollis, Dan Moran, a couple other guys. It's called Bod Pod. It's brand new, 5 episodes in. We just recorded one 2 nights ago, and it's a lot of fun. So make sure that you subscribe to that on iTunes. And you can listen to that show, my show, and all of the shows on the network. We've got 40 great different shows representing most of the teams in the league. A couple NBA draft shows if your team is on the outside looking in, which, given the fact that 28 teams right now aren't playing, might as well start looking towards the draft. And, we've got 2 great shows on almightyballer.com and on Dash Radio /almighty-baller. And, thanks for having me on, Rudy. It's always great to talk hoops with you.
Hey, man, sounds good. I appreciate it. I definitely thank you for your time, and everybody out there, make sure you go to seatgiant.com, get your experience, not just a piece of paper, because you want the experience, not the paper. Chris, thanks, man. I appreciate your time. And Lou, thanks for calling in, man. I appreciate your input as well. Thanks for hanging on.
My pleasure.
All right, guys. Take care. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris Axmann, and of course Lou. Go check out and shoot Chris a follow, would you? He's a great guy. He's very informative. I appreciate your time. Thank you, Chris, for joining me here on the Rude Dog Show. This, unfortunately, is a podcast, not quite working out so well in the software aspect of it, but I'm going to load it. It'll be ready, and I will transmit it as soon as it is. Thank you so much. This is Rudy Reyes on the Rude Dog Show on WBLZSports.com. I will see you guys tomorrow.